In this video, I will be covering how to undervolt a Ryzen CPU. Undervolting is a very common method people use to get the most performance out of their CPU. When you undervolt your CPU, you are essentially reducing the amount of voltage it is using, which in turn reduces how much watts the processor is consuming. Undervolting also lowers your CPU temperatures and makes your processor more efficient. This is all achieved while keeping the same performance on your processor or even increasing its performance. Before you can start undervolting, you must check your motherboard chipset to see if it is compatible with undervolting. If your motherboard is a B or X series, then you are good to go. Anything else will not work. To check what motherboard you have, head down here and type in DX diag. Then hit enter. Now once it's done loading, locate the system model section. If it begins with a B or X, then you're good to go. But in some cases you might see some random numbers and letters like I've seen here. If you see that, just open up Google and type in what you see. For me, I saw MS-7C95. I searched that up and I find my motherboard, and now I notice it has a B series, which means I'm good to go. Once you are sure that your motherboard is compatible with undervolting, let's begin the tutorial. Before we start undervolting, we must measure our CPU performance at stock settings. You can run a gaming benchmark if you'd like, or you could stress test your CPU using Cinebench. In this video, we will be stress testing using Cinebench, and we will use HWmonitor to track our stock temperatures, wattage, and clock speeds. So just download both HWmonitor and Cinebench before we continue. Once you have both applications downloaded, open up Cinebench and HWmonitor and minimize both of them. Once everything's done loading, you're going to want to set the minimum test duration to off. Make sure it's on off. And you're going to want to press start right next to the CPU multi-core test. Once your stress test is over, quickly open up a notepad and record these things. First, you're going to want to record the score you got. Mine was 10,591 points. Now you want to record the maximum temperature your CPU reached. For me, that was 78.1 Celsius. And now you're going to want to write down max wattage. For me, it was 105 watts. And you're going to want to write down what your CPU clock speeds were throughout the time. For me, it was 4.4 to 4.5 gigahertz. Now just file and save as, and just write something you're going to remember. I'm just going to write stock test. Once you're done stress testing your CPU, you're now going to want to boot into the BIOS. You do this by restarting your computer, and when it's booting back up, you want to smash the delete key. This will signal your computer that you want to go into the BIOS. Once you're in the BIOS, you're going to want to go to overclocking settings and scroll down until you find voltage settings and set the CPU core voltage to offset mode and set the CPU offset mode mark to minus because we're removing voltage, and set the CPU offset voltage to 0.05 volts, and then you can go to the top right corner right here and click yes. After you're done setting your undervolt in the BIOS, go back into Windows and run another stress test using Cinebench and HWmonitor. You probably won't notice a major difference in performance, watts, or temperatures at all, since the undervolt was very small. After the stress test is over, open Notepad and record all your statistics and save it in a separate document. Once the stress test is finished, boot back into the BIOS and increase your undervolt by about minus 0.020 volts at a time. Once you have done this, save and exit the BIOS and run the stress test again. You're going to want to rinse and repeat this process multiple times until you have found a stable undervolt where your system doesn't crash at all and you see the benefits of decreased temperatures and wattage and the same if not increased performance. Once you have found stable undervolt, head into Cinebench and set the minimum test duration to 30 minutes and run a CPU multi-core stress test. If you finish this test without having your system crash, congrats! You have found yourself a stable undervolt. Now you might want to head into your favorite games you play and check if the undervolt is stable there as well. Check if you end up getting the same performance or increased performance, and if your temps went down from before. If you end up crashing in one of your games, don't worry, just head back into the BIOS and add plus 0.020 volts back into your undervolt and test the same game again. Once all is well, you can pat yourself on the back for finding a stable undervolt for your system. Now you get to enjoy the amazing performance of your system with chilly temperatures.